Hey, this is Seth with In Demand Career. I show people how to get life-changing jobs in digital marketing with no previous experience or education. And that includes my very special guest today, Trent, who was working as a dishwasher when he found my course. And after taking it, he is now working as an SEO specialist, making $50,000 a year remotely. But there's a lot more to his story than that. I think it's a very relatable story. I'm really excited to share it with you. Thanks for being here, Trent.
Thank you, Seth. This is quite an honor. You were like a celebrity on my YouTube stream. You used to come up with all these interviews, so it's a big deal being on here for me.
Awesome, man. I'm happy to talk with you. So why don't you tell people a little bit about what you're doing right now?
I work for a company that specializes in bringing traffic to coupon companies. Like, we're a coupon company, and we're trying to bring users to pages like Target or Walmart or a lot of those sorts of retailers to try to get as much traffic as we can to those pages.
That's great. And you're doing that via SEO, like you're trying to get organic, like people who are searching for coupons on Google, you help make those pages more visible. Is that right?
Yeah. So we're trying to rank in the top spot on all the different retailers we have. And, whether it's like working on site or creating ads for the coupons and discounts and sales pages. That's primarily what we do as editors.
Cool. And you were saying you actually write the ad copy, write the ads, or write some kind of content. I mean, what is your actual title? You were saying before you were something like what is your actual title?
Yeah, an editor is what they call me, but we do we're primarily like either creating the ads, so the ad copy themselves, to answer your question, and then also it's like working on the static content on the pages, so the more long form stuff where you're explaining about the products that the retailer's offering, or when different sales are going to be going on, or what the best way to buy, all that sort of stuff. So there are different things you do on it, but primarily, yeah, you're trying to get the most current and available like ad copy up on the page.
Right. And you're essentially doing SEO.
Yeah. That's, I would say, more, because I'm not doing the like Google ads like you teach, I know, in the course. I'm doing more like on-page optimization.
That's great, man. And what are you making at this job?
So I started at 50,000 a year, and then there are a couple different ways through like they call it the KPIs that my manager sets. So like goals that we set at the beginning of a quarter. Like if you meet certain goals, then you can get bonuses. But yeah.
That's awesome, man. This sounds to me like this is a lot more than you were making in your previous job.
Oh yeah. I was I was making $12 an hour, which was actually a lot compared to what other dishwashers were making, I know. But yeah, I was making $12 an hour as a dishwasher, so it certainly helps pay the bills.
That's great, man. That's what I was going to ask you. The next question, of course, everyone wants to know is like, what was going on in your life? What was happening, before you made this transition from having no experience in digital marketing to now doing SEO, on-page optimization for these giant retailers like Target and Walmart?
Yeah. So I was just about to graduate when I sort of started having doubts about my career and just generally what I was doing. I was planning to be an occupational therapist, and I was just about to graduate with my undergrad to try and eventually get into graduate school and become get my master's degree and everything. And and at the time, it was also like there was a lot of personal stuff going on with my family and with certain relationships, and things just weren't at their best. And it's one of those things that I'm honestly like kind of grateful for, that it all came to a heap when it did, because then, like, as soon as I graduated, I remember being on YouTube when I ended up finding your course. And it was one of those things where, like, if all those, relative to me, like those bad things didn't happen, I don't think I would have been willing to just jump in and do that and totally abandon ship on what I had been going to school for 4 years to do. So right. It was just like perfect timing.
That could be the case, guys. I think that's a really good point, man, for anyone watching who's having, problems. And, when I found digital marketing, I had been unemployed for a while. I was, like, I remember my parents coming to visit before I got my first job, and I hadn't had a job, and it was just like, but I was in that point, like you're describing, when you have stress or struggle or challenges in your life, it motivates you in many cases to take action and make a change. So for anybody who's having a challenge, I encourage you to look at it like that. Look at it as an opportunity, because sometimes if you're like some people that who come to me, they're in a job that pays decently and they don't really like it. They're kind of stuck. But when you have like things falling apart or things are difficult, it gives you that energy. And if you don't, I know you're a pretty open guy. You were telling us, I don't know if you wanted to share a little more about what was going on before you found the course, because I know a lot of people can probably relate.
Yeah. So my parents were going through a divorce, which I had found out about, like a few months earlier. And it was just sort of brutal on both sides between my brother and I, and going different sides of the family and all that. And I wasn't really speaking to a couple of members of my family, which was tough. And I always grew up and the family was a big part of my life. So, that being the case, and then with the like lockdowns of COVID and everything, I think I, like many other people, sort of struggled with that. And my main like relationship at the time deteriorated, and that was like everything to me at the time. So when that happened, it was like just everything coming together at once in a way that I didn't quite understand. And I was very fortunate, like as a kid, I didn't have very many like objectively horrible things happen. I was lucky in that regard, I feel. But then all these things were sort of happening, and I wasn't in a happy place. And I remember, like, as soon as I graduated, I got a message from my grandmother and in New York. And I remember her like telling me like, congratulations, this is the first step in many, and all this stuff. And I remember like the feeling of just like, it felt like nothing to me. Like I was so empty that I was graduated, but I felt like, oh, I just have 3 more years of freaking school. And like, that's the last thing I want to do right now. And like, how am I going to pay for it? And it was just like, yeah, it was a point where like a lot was going on. But honestly, dude, like, again, if not for all those things, I feel like there's a really good chance I would have just ended up doing it and being in a lot of debt, and like not enjoying myself and living somewhere I potentially didn't want to be living.
Absolutely.
But
the guys, the pressure to go to college and follow this path is so intense. You don't even realize it's like we're all North Koreans and we're worshiping Kim Jong Un or whatever his name is. Like it's so deeply embedded. So sometimes for a lot of you guys, if this doesn't apply to everyone, but if you're in that situation where you're kind of like on the track to go to college or grad school or something, you have to realize you're entrenched in a way of thinking that's very deep. So sometimes it takes like a derailment, like you're talking about, to get you out of it. So anyway, we'll get back to the digital marketing in a moment, but I think this is very relatable to everybody watching. I know I can relate to it, like I said. And I love you're obviously very happy now. That's what's so cool about it. You're like, yeah, this was happening, that was happening. Obviously, you made a lot of positive changes in your life. What were you majoring in back in college?
Yeah, so it was sort of like a hybrid degree. I don't know if they offered it at other programs, but it was a hybrid between psychology and exercise science. And it was what my parents and all my advisors and everyone told me that was like the best degree to get for occupational therapy, which is what I wanted to go to grad school for. And then that was part of the disconnect I had, is once like my last year, my senior year, they started telling me like, oh, you should have just went in exercise science and forget the psychology. And it was just like one of those things of many that was frustrating. And I remember like talking to certain schools and being like, hey, I'm doing this, I was just calling about the applications process. And I had a couple schools like actually tell me like, don't worry about, like, don't bother applying. Like you're not getting in with that. And it was just like really disheartening.
Wow. Guys, I mean, and not to go, we're not going to go on a huge college tangent here, but guys, higher education is so corrupt and so terrible. It's like there's no other business where you could treat your customers like this. You're told, first of all, you're given the wrong information by so many people who don't know what they're talking about. They just maybe read something. Your parents don't know what they're talking about. You should actually talk to someone working in the field, in any field. If you are in college and you're happy with your major, make sure you've talked with someone working in the field so you can get some real grounded information. Because otherwise you get all this, now you just spent 4 years of your life, and then you're supposed to go to grad school and they're saying, oh, by the way, you didn't do that right, but everyone else said it was right. The other thing is it's like a big sales pitch. So a lot of these majors, they're like, well, you spent 4 years studying this thing, but you need a master's degree. So it's just more sales, guys. It's a business. It's like so crazy. It's one of the reasons I obviously have a big problem with all this. So let me, you said you want to be an occupational therapist, and I want to get more into your volunteer work in a moment, because I know occupational therapy or these types of things, this is a unique thing. This is, you want to actually help people sort of rehabilitate themselves. So you have a personality of someone who wants to do, you were doing something that was like psychology and like hands-on rehabilitation. I know you did a lot of volunteering, which we'll talk about, but now you're sitting at a computer doing website optimization. How do you actually like the job? Because it's not really related. It doesn't seem like it's that related to what you went to school for.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. That's a good question. Because I mean, everything I did even before that I haven't mentioned, like the other jobs I had, I worked as like a referee, and I was always active in some sort of a physical way. So it's definitely a transition.
Referee for what sport?
Just like at college, I was a referee for basketball and flag football and volleyball and all that stuff. I really enjoyed all that.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a much different pace for sure. But the way I sort of look at it is like in the beginning, I definitely felt like I didn't know what I was doing once I got at the job. Even though I had like experience, it was such a different environment that I wasn't used to. But once I just got comfortable with it, being remote is like so big for me because I feel like I can actually make my schedule now, and still getting paid reasonably, so I'm not just screwing around. Um, like that's a big plus for me, and the way I look at it is like it's a perfect balance for me right now because I have another job. I don't know if we mentioned this yet, but I have another job where I just work at the assisted living home. Yeah, I mentioned before that I was working there, and I still do it on the weekends, and occasionally when I get done during the day, I'll just go there because it's sort of like the way I think about it is it like recharges my batteries, so to speak. And so I get my social there if I'm missing it at the ads agency. But with the company I work for, it's like they really challenge you and push you to like go towards, what is the thing that you enjoy doing here? And we're going to send you down that avenue and like get after it. Right. And I've really enjoyed I'm really glad that they've let me have that sort of freedom. So it can be tough. Like it's a
And
grind.
when you say they push you, you're talking about the optimization. So they've like pushed you
Yeah.
into learning more about SEO. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So in the amount of like retailers that they give you, like the amount of pages that they're giving you for the coupons for the different retailers. So like I started out with 10, right? And now I have like 40 of them. And then also it's not just the volume that you have, but then it's like getting them to either the first page on Google, or if they're on the third page, getting them to the second page or getting them into the top 3. It's like they're always challenging you with those kind of things. So it's not monotonous to me. It's like it's really goal oriented, which I like because then it's not you just feeling like you're doing nothing. Like it's like, hey, I need to get this on this first page because we've been sitting back here for a while, So I honestly, dude, like I didn't know going into it. I was so happy that when I found your course that there was something I could potentially, make some money doing and do it remote. But I didn't know. Like it was a shot in the dark whether or not I'd enjoy, doing this stuff. But it's like I'm really happy with my routine right now, and it's like a perfect balance for me of doing this stuff and then going to the other job and socializing.
Tell us, this is really great, guys. I know I do get a lot of questions about like day in the life about this job. And I always say it's a creative and analytical type of a job that's strategic. So that's the hardest thing. I think something I haven't articulated, you kind of pinpointed, when I was in my 20s, I had so many menial, I worked as a waiter, I worked as a delivery driver, I worked in a lot of office jobs where I was doing spreadsheets and data entry. So I was sitting at a computer, right? Like just like a robot copying stuff. But when you do SEO or PPC, you're sitting at a computer, but you're not like a robot. You actually have to use you have to use problem solving and like strategy, which is why I think people do get into it. So it sounds like when you get a log on for your job every day, are you kind of like what's going on? You're like looking at results, you like trying to figure out what you need to do to change things on the website.
Yeah. So we have like a big page, it's like an Excel sheet that has all these different tabs in it. And, you go there to see like what is dropped overnight or over the course of the last week, like what pages have dropped. And if they've dropped big time, then you specialize on those. And you sort of just pick like like I go through the day and try to pick like 5 or 7 that I'm just going to, optimize those throughout the day and try to get them back on the first page. And then, you sort of go by the week and you just keep going and you keep tabs on what you've done to see if any of them improve. And then if they do, it's like, take the lessons you learn there and try to apply them to the next retailers, So, that was, again, I was worried. That was like my main concern, was that it was just going to be like me doing sort of like menial stuff, or not really feeling like I'm having an impact. But it's like, when you're working on these pages and you can see like, hey man, like I got onto the first page, doing whatever, like that, it gets you up in the day, so to speak.
It's really,
so it's just,
yeah. I'm sorry.
I mean, it's
ahead.
like you said, it's finding because, it can be easy to feel stuck in whatever you're doing, like not just in marketing. I definitely feel that way. So it's like, you see the task ahead and you find the impact in it that means something to you, right? And so those little things like getting onto the first page is like awesome, and
that's a big thing.
They also treat me well. So
yeah. No, what you're describing is exactly really articulating. This is why I like digital marketing when I found it, because I said I've tried other things, but like there's something exciting about seeing results for what you're doing. You really start to feel, not going to say important, but you just feel like what you're doing matters. I think that's the biggest. We're not like doctors in Africa or something like that. We're marketers, but it's very easy in office jobs to feel like it's such a cliche. Like even the show The Office, is just like, you feel like you're just doing this pointless work for 8 hours of your day. You don't see any impact. But when you see an impact, whether it's you're running paid ads like I did with Google, and you see, clicks coming in and people engaging with your client, and sales coming in or leads coming in, or you're doing SEO and you see you're making changes to your client's ranking, and it's immediate, or not immediate, but you see the results every day and you're working towards a goal, it's very satisfying, I think, on a human level. Which is one reason why I know some people have always wondered, like, why are my students so excited about this, other than the money? Because there's like finance majors making a lot of money. They're not like lit up in life. They're struggling and grinding away. It's because of this. I think because of the fact you get to see this kind of progress. And I think you made a really good point. So we'll get more into your other job in a moment, because I like you have this balance where you're on the computer, and when you work on the computer all day, you really do need a balance in your life. You need to do physical activity. You need to socialize and things like that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your other job? Where you work in an assisted living facility, you were saying?
Yeah. So some people know it as a nursing home. We like to, use the terminology assisted living, because it doesn't sound as morbid. But yeah, it's a senior citizen living facility. And I do various different things when I go there. So sometimes I go there and I'm like a cook, or I serve, or if I have to, I'll do like house cleaning or nursing. I don't know a ton about nursing, so I sort of hesitate to do that all the time. But the way I look at it, because I feel like that's a big part of all this, is like the way you look at it. Because a lot of people will ask me, like, what are you doing working here? Because they'll, like, I told them like, oh, I got a marketing job and everything, and they're like, what the hell are you doing here? And it's like, the way I choose to look at it is like, look, I enjoy this. This is where I get my social, and my family life still isn't like, great, I'll just be completely transparent. And it's like, I used to spend a lot of time with my family and I don't get to see them as much anymore. So it's like, I love being there. Like, that's sort of, I look at them as my family, the assisted living home. Like, my coworkers, I really get along with, and all the residents there, most of them are really cool and nice, and I have lovely conversations with. So it's like,
what about you were saying something about the actual residents, like these guys in their or people in their 70s. You said, what's it like hanging out with them?
70s, 80s, 90s. Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's a much different thing than I'm used to. I've been there for a little while now, so like I have relationships with a lot of them now, just in short term. But it's cool getting to see them, because one, like, I genuinely do get along with them, but it's also, you see the regret. When you see the regret in their eyes, like, it sort of changes things for you. It's like you need to be doing what the heck you want to be doing with your life, because there are a lot of people there who clearly didn't, and they're unhappy with themselves. And some of them have even expressed that to me. So it's like, constantly motivating being there, because you're seeing people physically at their worst. But then sometimes they're as happy as can be, and so I don't know, it's that probably sounded really silly, but I
No,
really
man,
enjoy
I get
it.
what you're saying. I mean, it's a unique, most of, in our Western culture, we don't really appreciate our elders that much. We put them we have, there's so many nursing homes in America. And I'm in Asia. They don't have nursing homes here, really. It's not a thing, because the elderly parents live with, they come back and live with the children, and there's like a real respect. And I'm not, I think they're kind of two different extremes, but I think you can learn so much from people who are older than you and get a perspective. But if you're just around people your own age, you lack that perspective. And one of the things they say is youth is wasted on the young. And it's really true. I look at myself in my 20s, and I'm pretty fortunate to be in my 40s and have, like, I think, a second youth in my experience. Because it's like, I have a lot of mentors who are 20, 30 years older than me, and they help give me an appreciation for a lot of things I take for granted. Could be things, and especially even something like your physical health and your mental acuity. Like, you guys watching this in your 20s and 30s, I mean, you guys have more energy. You have more mental ability now. That's why I'm so passionate about this. I'm like, dude, you get this, do this now, hustle now, work those 12-hour days now. If you have to, if you're working a day job and doing my course, do it now for the future.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, dude, like the happiest, like, because I get asked it all the time at work, like, why are you still working here? And it always makes me feel good, honestly, because it's like, I see in them, it's like nobody else would even think about doing this, but it makes me feel good about me, not to like be, to come off like egotistical, but it's like, I'm so glad that for me, I found a routine where it's like, look, I can do this job during the day, and then I can come here on the weekends and on night, and I enjoy it. Like, I genuinely enjoy it, and the one thing I wanted to say is, like, the reason I was doing or trying to go down the occupational therapy route was because I always enjoyed doing things like that. I worked for a long time with volunteering for kids and adults on the spectrum. And that was like what, of course, my parents told me, like, oh, you should go become a occupational therapist and go to school for 8 years, since you like doing this. And so I was like, okay, because I just wanted to impress them. Honestly, I think that's why I did it. And so, like, but once I graduated, I was like, I don't want to go to school for another 3 years. And now it's like, I get to work there, and that's kind of how I fulfill that need. Like, I can do the marketing stuff, but then also still do this, and it fulfills me. And I feel like once I realized that, it was like a really big moment for me, because it was like, I don't need to do the therapy. I don't need to do this. It was all just like a pressure from either my parents or all the people I had told, like, I'm going to be a therapist. And they're like, oh, great. Because, if you say you're a therapist, that's going to make me look really good. Right. But now getting to do it for myself and like choose to do it and not have to do all the therapy, it's just like, it's really freeing in a way. It feels like a huge weight is off the shoulders, not having to like think about going to school for another 4 years.
That is the freedom that I like to help share with people with the Skip College for Success approach to life. It is such a relief. Totally. And by the way, we go off on a whole mental health tangent here, but like a really close friend of mine in the US has worked for about 10 years in various like rehab type facilities, whether it has to do with drug abuse or autism or things like that. He's worked with a lot of people who have struggles, and he has no advanced degree. He has a bachelor's, but I think he actually is going back to school for his master's, but he's gone very far in that industry without. There's just a lot of different ways to get into different fields if you're passionate about it. And of course, digital marketing. So, you got it. You got this. By the way, starting out at 50K is happening more and more often. Honestly, I've been doing this for, since 2016. I've interviewed a lot of people. And typically what I tell people is the path to six figures is like, you start out at maybe 30 or 40K after you leverage up to 50, 60K. And then after like 2 or 3 years, you're in the 70, 80, 90K. But so many more people, I think it's because of the demand for marketers, are making, 50K with bonuses out of the gate. I interviewed all, these high school students that just graduated, Kayshawn and Christopher and Morgan are making 50K right out of the gate. Now I think it's really awesome. So just getting back to the digital marketing for a moment, because that's obviously the focus here. I was wondering, what's it like at like in your job, your day job now? Like, do you get support? Do you, obviously you came into the course with like the experience you generated from, you came into the job with the experience you generated from the course, but what's it like, when you started, like were the people helping you out? Were they just like handing you these accounts and saying, okay, good luck?
No, there was definitely a lot of like, they had all these pages that, I got hired along with another guy. And so it was like, and they had obviously been through it many times with the other editors. So it was like, there was a really structured, like sort of like your course almost. It was like the first month, basically, like we didn't do any actual like updating anything on page because it was just all these, these different pages and tasks that they would have us do. I would say for the first month, like I didn't do any marketing stuff. It was basically like training. They didn't call it that, but like it was basically getting paid to be trained. Which again, at the time, I just thought like, okay, this is like my internship, except I am actually hired. So I don't have to worry about them not hiring me. And I'm just getting paid to like do this. And then like by the second month, so in September, they gave me, I told you like the 10 retailers, but it was basically my manager would like watch over them. So like, she would make sure I was doing things, correctly. She gave me leeway, but like just making sure I didn't screw things up. And I like the way, like I said, that they sort of eased me into it. Like they didn't just like, okay, you have 250 retailers, like figure it out. It started with 10. Now I'm at, 30, 40. And I actually just this past week, they didn't give me more like retailers, but they gave me more like long form content that I was going to get to write. And that was really exciting for me. So no, it wasn't all immediate. I would say that it was different like software that I was having to, that's why there was so much training. Cause I went from your course, it was like, I was really heavy in the like Google ads was what I thought was going to be like the most positions available. So that was what I focused on. And then I ended up getting an SEO job. So it was like, okay, now I kind of got to go more into this.
Right. There's definitely, it's both, and that happens with a lot of my students. And then you mentioned in your email, so like you got hired. What was your experience when you got hired? Like, how did it go? How did the actual hiring go? Like, what was your experience?
Are you talking about like the interviewing specifically or just what I had achieved?
You can do the, like, yeah. What experience did you have from the course? How did the interview go? And then how did you, what was it like getting hired?
Yeah. So, I mean, I can't remember what his name was. And it's bugging me that I'm forgetting, but there was a guy I remember who, when I was taking the course, who had just gotten hired, and he was like 19 or 20. And like, he only did the website. Basically, he did like a bodybuilding thing. I can't remember what his name
is. You're talking about Kyan?
Yeah, Kyan. Yeah, that was.
Yeah, that's the example I use. Yeah.
I remember messaging him, which was like big for me because I'm still kind of like getting out of my shell about messaging people and, asking when I have questions. And I remember messaging him and just being like, dude, like, how did you do this? Like, I saw the video and I remember him emailing me back. He's like, dude, just create the website. Like, I got a job. And so I was like, okay, I can do this. Like, I messaged him early on and I was like, all right. So I created the website. I did everything you said, like ran the ads towards it. I did the email marketing thing, which really confused me at the time. I remember like not knowing what I was doing. And I did all the SEO like set up on that page. And I remember getting my first conversion. Actually, that was such a big deal. It wasn't like a paid thing. It was just like, I did this thing on like how to get over breakups and I wrote the pages myself. And then I linked it to like a video of me talking and it was horrible, but somebody actually did it. And it was like, that was so exciting. So I did the website and then I had a couple people on Upwork message me and I would help them. And all of them wanted help with Facebook ads, which of course was like the one thing I knew nothing about. And then I did help somebody for like, they had a record store. And this is what I like really tried to sell in my interviews. I remember was I created basically like a page for him, which now this is like months ago, but he didn't have any setup. Like he didn't have a website. He didn't have anything. So like I created this website for him and I had like all his, cause he had a physical record store and I had all the like links going to like, whatever records he had in store. And I had a jazz section and I had an alternative section and like current and all that stuff, which I'm really into all that music. So that was fun. And then right as it got to the point where we were going to be like, cause I was just doing it for free cause it was my first experience, he like bailed. He was totally like, no, we don't have the money for this, like blah, blah, blah. But just with that, I basically like fabricated my own story about like, I didn't lie, but I did say like in the interviews is like, look, I did create this thing for him. It's no longer running. If they asked that, I'd be like, no, it's no longer running. But just that, like I could tell it wasn't so much like the, the verbiage I was using, like about digital marketing. It was that I had actually done that. I think that impressed them, and same with the website. Like I know a lot of people who you've interviewed had said that when people hear that, like, and it was the same with me, they were like, why did you create a website? Like I had so many people during the interviews asked me like, why did you create a website? I was like, and I wasn't prepared. I was like, well, I wanted to get some experience. They were really impressed with the record store thing and the company.
Guys, I just want to, this is great, guys. This is great, man. I mean, you're describing, by the way, there is Facebook ads training in the course, but it's like, I know there overwhelmed. You get overwhelmed with like, the SEO, the PPC and the Facebook ad. And they're just such a demand for everything. But you guys, especially if you're in the course, you got to really take this to heart. I say it again and again. I know it's hard to believe. Get a little bit of experience and own it. That's what the whole course is about. It's not, like you said, I've seen these programs. It's like, oh, you're going to spend 3 years learning analytics or something. I'm like, dude, you show up. You haven't actually worked. You work on one actual website. You're going to get so much more. You're going to impress people so much more than theory, a lot of theory. And you didn't even have a website that was working. Like the client shut it down. But that alone, the fact that you took the initiative to create it, whether it's your own site, in Kyan's case, it was just his own site, it impresses people because companies like this, and I'm just going to speak back to what you said before, they need people that speak the language. And it's what I've been saying since 2016. And it's funny because I always thought, I really believe, I said, when I made the course, I thought, this is going to last for a couple of years, but eventually the colleges will catch up and maybe there won't be as many jobs. It's the opposite. There's more jobs and there's more of a need. And they're doing just what they did with Trent. They saw a guy who had the drive, obviously a great attitude and his own experience. And he knew the basics. And they took him in and they didn't throw a bunch of stuff. I know a lot of people are scared of this. They didn't just throw a lot of accounts at him. They basically paid him to train him, which is better than college where you pay to learn nothing. He got paid while he was getting trained. And because guys, you have to understand, you're an asset. You're going to look at these things like business. Just look at everything like business. What is a business's job? To make money. So they're training him, not because they just, let's just train him because we're nice people. They're training him because eventually Trent is making them money. They get him the right training, the right skills. They show him how to do this. Now he's working with Target. He's working with Walmart. He's making Target and Walmart money. The company is happy. He's an investment. They're investing in you. That's why these companies will train you. And they have to, again, because they're not, it's not like you're competing with thousands of people who've got years of experience. It's a new industry. That's why this is possible. And I think that's really, really cool to hear again, that you didn't have a lot of experience. You didn't even have a functional website. So what was it like, tell us the fun part where you actually got hired. Like, what was it like? Because I know your email to me was really passionate. What was that like?
Dude, it was huge. I wanted to just capitalize on the one point finally with the interview, because it kind of leads into your question. I do remember them asking, the company that actually ended up hiring me, they asked me during the interview, and it was like one of the last questions. I felt like I was doing good. And then they asked me, like, how does your degree relate to what we're doing? Because it was a marketing thing. And they asked me, like, what does psychology and exercise science have to do with it? And honestly, dude, like in previous interviews, I had concocted some like stuff about psychology and that giving me an advantage. But like in the interview, I remember just being honest with them. And I was like, I went to school for something completely different. Like I've been doing the marketing thing for the past few months. And I was just like you said, like I owned up to that for the first time. I had been, again, not lying about it, but I had been like trying to act as though it was related to what I was doing now, which I just don't, it didn't come off authentic clearly with the other places that I interviewed with. And so I think they really liked that. And I interviewed with the, like my manager right now the next day. And then that day I remember feeling like I had bombed. And that day I was sitting at the park and I was like writing, because I like writing like fiction whenever I can. And I had just gotten finished. And I remember looking at the email because it like popped up and it said that I got hired. And I was like, or they were offering me a job or whatever. And it was like, yeah, I mean, it was one of those, I haven't had a lot of these moments in my life, but it was one of those things where it was like, you know, you looked at yourself when you were like really in the toilet, you know, at the end of December for me in 2020, and then to march forward like 6 months and have that happen was like it was huge, man. Like that, you know, and it was one of the first things that I just did on my own. You know, I felt like I made a decision on my own to like go after the marketing thing. And I remember my dad was like, what are you doing? Like, why are you know, and it was a lot of pressure, and like there was a lot of doubt, dude. And I haven't told you this, but like your enthusiasm for it. That's why I'm, you know, it's like your enthusiasm that you had during the core. You never, you know, like we never spoke during it. It was just in those videos, like you really made me feel like that I could, you know, that I could do it. Cause there was a lot of days where I doubted myself. So I remember emailing you and I was probably so over the top, but I was just like, I was so excited, man. And it's still, you know, it still continues to this day. Like I'm happy to be where I am, man. And I'm, you know, I'm incredibly, I can't tell you how grateful I am to you. You know, it's just, I can't even begin, you know, cause that like moment on New Year's Eve when I was like, I'm doing the course, you know, it's led me to a lot of happiness. So, yeah, man, again, not to be so sanctimonious about all this, but it was huge. And then I just emailed them back. And I remember my dad afterwards was like, you should have negotiated with them. Like you should have like told them you wanted this much and all that stuff. But I was just like, sign me up. Like I'm there.
That's so great, man. I really appreciate it. Yeah. I remember your email was one of those ones that was like, we've had some people, you know, their personality just like, hey, I got a job, you know, and then most people are pretty enthusiastic. Yours was like, I thought I bombed the interview. I never even had an internship and I got the job. I can't believe it. So it was really, maybe I'll put it on the video. Well, that's a dad thing to say, I guess. I think I've had my dad say things like that from time to time. But, you know, the great thing about this field, like what I tell people, by the way, if you're watching this and your first job, I wouldn't negotiate too much unless they're really lowballing you, which it sounds like they weren't. I mean, $50K for a remote job with no experience, man, that's awesome. And you're going to leverage that up. You can negotiate in 6 months when you've been producing results for them. And by the way, how old are you and where do you live?
So I'm 23 and I live in Georgia. So I live in a little town called Ackworth. And I used to live in Atlanta. Like I went to school in Atlanta. So I moved down here, which is more, I think, my vibe.
Small town.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually, they were like trying to get back to a point where my company to where they were gonna have us go in like a couple days a week, to like into the office. But then they were like, they suspended that because of the rising cases and whatnot.
Right.
So, you know, we're totally virtual, and it's at a point now where I'm pretty confident I'll be able to negotiate my way into being, you know, continuing full-time virtual. Because it's like you said, as long as you like produce, it's like I had this block in my mind of like, because when they said like, okay, we're going to go back to like 2 days a week going in the office, I was like, I don't want to go into the office. Atlanta traffic sucks. Like I did that enough, you know, I don't want to do that. And I remember it was just, I watched like this video on YouTube that was like, you know, ask the questions, like ask the questions you don't want to ask, you know, whatever your fear is, like, just, you know. And so I remember asking my manager, like, would I be able to do this? And she was like, yeah, you probably could, you know, because it wasn't her decision whether or not I'd be able to. But it's one of those things where it's like, I didn't even think I could, you know, negotiate that. But it's like, you don't think, it's like you were saying, like they're paying you to produce. So if you produce, whether you're here, whether you're there, like whatever, like as long as you're getting the pages on the first, or getting your clients on the first page or in the top 3 or whatever, like they don't really care. You know, all of that is just like,
I think that's a really good point, man. And yeah, we're talking about, you know, staying remote. It's like, yeah, I worked at an agency and I remember it made no sense to me. I mean, I like seeing my coworkers, but like, I was thinking like, you're paying rent in LA for us to have an office and sit on our computers all day.
Yeah.
Like, what is the point of this if we're, as you said, if we're producing the results, plus we're saving you money. You know, some companies, you know, some places I'm like, you know, it's nice to come in and have that community, but I think a lot of you guys, like I've interviewed, are love being remote and having that freedom. I wanted to circle back to one last thing before we wrap this up, which is like when you're talking about at your interview, when you kind of, and it's, you know, guys, it's totally like, if you're majoring in psychology, I probably would have done the same thing. And I would have said something like, well, I've learned about how people think and how they relate to things, and that's helping me. I probably would have done that because that's also, I was trained that way in school. You know, I was, you know, they train you to write essays and stuff. But I think the fact that you were super honest and you were like, yeah, psychology and exercise science have absolutely nothing to do with marketing. Sorry, but I've been doing it for 6 months, and here's what I've done. And then they hired you. That should be very inspiring to everyone watching this, whether you're in the course or you're not. As you can be honest, and I teach you in the course, like what I'm teaching you, and this, I know it's hard for people to wrap their heads around it because, and I put this in the new interview video. I said, look, you're in a practice, okay? They call it a medical practice. They call it a law practice. Why do they call it a practice? Because literally you're a human being and you're doing this thing. You're practicing it every single day. So once you get these skills and you start you build one website, you do one ad campaign, you are a digital marketer. You are just a relatively new digital marketer. I don't teach my students to walk into the office. And I've seen some other people that do this kind of thing where they want to say, hey, walk into the office and say you've managed $100,000 in ad spend. No, I don't teach that. I teach you to be honest. But a lot of you guys, you get so wrapped up in imposter syndrome that you won't be honest about the good things about what you've done. So some people will be like, yeah, I've already built a website. I've gotten leads. They've done like 20 things. And they're like, but I still have, you know, I don't have like 10 years of work experience. Well, no, of course, you know, nobody has 10 years of work experience in this field. It's a new field. You need to be honest. Like, I think he says, be honest. And a lot of times we associate being honest with some kind of negative thing. Like, oh, I had to admit that I have this problem or I don't have enough experience. Why don't you be honest about what you do have, guys? Whether you're in my course or not, be honest about the good things about yourself. Be honest about the skills and knowledge that you do have. I actually never thought about that till now. I was like, so many of us associate being honest with like, you know, something, oh, I have to kind of admit something. But so many of us are not honest about our positive qualities. And that's lying too. If you like walk into an interview and you have all this knowledge and experience and you don't really own it, you're not being honest. Be honest.
And just
you'll get
you
hired. Yeah.
Like I didn't again, honestly, like during my first few interviews, like I wasn't being who I am. Like I was trying to be, you know, like I like the term you use, the imposter syndrome. Like I was trying to, again, I wasn't like lying. I was just making out that I was much more experienced than I was. And they saw through it like immediately. Like maybe the first person, like I would get a lot of second callbacks, but then in the second callbacks, I'd talk to the manager or whoever the second person was, not just the hiring manager. And they would always see like right through it. And I felt like it wasn't until, that's why I said that what I did, like about just being honest about the degree I had, because I knew that was an awkward thing now that I was going for a marketing gig. And once I was just finally like admitted that, it's like, look, I have the psych thing, you know, but that's not what I'm doing right now. I felt like that was, you know, I can't help but think it's not a coincidence that like the place that ended up hiring me was the place that it was the first time I had actually been transparent about what the reality was.
Right. And what I teach in the course, guys, I just updated this video about this again. It's a balance. You don't want to walk in and fabricate things and make up stuff, but you do want to own, like when they start asking you about your clients, you know, because that's what they're going to do. And I teach now. I added a new video, Trent, since you took the course, where I talk about how to actually formulate your answers in advance so that you're confident in your answers, but you're being honest. Like you literally, if you had that one website that you built or you've run one campaign, be like, yeah, I have 1 or 2 clients and I managed to increase, you know, the click-through rate, and I managed to do this, you know, and I did this, and this. Now you're being honest, you're being confident, and you're not overselling it. You're not saying, oh yes, I've worked for Adidas and I've managed millions of dollars. And I think when you talk about them seeing through you, it's that, again, if you're trying, you feel that you have to compensate. You know, you feel like you have to overcompensate. And I'm telling you guys, that's the point is you don't have to overcompensate in this market. You don't have to. I am teaching you in the course how to put together a resume and how to talk to people and generate just enough experience so that they're going to get that you know the language. And when you go into different interviews, it's like dating. Like, yeah, there's going to be some agencies where they really want, they're like, hey, have you worked with $1 million in ad spend for e-commerce clients? And you're going to be like, no. And they may not hire you, but they might say, hey, we've got another position that's more entry level. That's what happened to me in my career, when I was just like a year into my career. And I remember I saw a management position. I think I've told this story, but I'll tell again. And it was like, you need to have this much ad spend experience. And I had managed, at that point I had managed $100,000 a month, but they wanted like someone who'd done management, like you've managed other marketers. And it was a very senior position. And I applied for it. And I really didn't have like the credentials. But then they called me and they said, look, man, you don't qualify for this senior position, but we've got all these junior positions open. And I got that. So you just don't know what you're going to get when you're honest with people.
Right.
Because when I applied for the senior position, I didn't make up that I said, I've done this.
Yeah.
I didn't have any of the qualifications. But
no, I had the same misconception that like I was applying to these, junior positions and I had this idea just like naturally that I had to have more experience or I didn't have enough. I think it's just coming from a place where, you don't think you're good enough for whatever you're doing. And I know I had that because I had to like convince myself, that like, and your templates, by the way, are gold. I wanted to just say that really quickly. Those things like were really helpful because you could organize everything. And once I like got everything in, it was one of those things where it's like, I thought I had done nothing, but it was like, no, I did like a lot of stuff to create the website and like learning, versus if you think about like the people who are going to school, who you have to imagine like aren't actually interacting with, ad campaigns. You just have to like look at it from that point of view instead of choosing to look at it as like, I don't have enough. And just because there are all this like laundry list of requirements on the job description, like that doesn't mean, and because you don't have them, that doesn't mean that like you have no chance of getting that position.
Right. And as I've said to you guys in all of my walkthrough videos, that is like, you don't know. This is not, it's not like the law, like if you want to get a driver's license or you want to get a medical license, there's a checklist. You have to have everything. If you want a visa, like you want to come to Thailand and get a visa, there's like a checklist. You have to have everything on the checklist. It's the law. It's a rule. It's set in stone. These job postings, you don't know who posted the job. That's why I teach you to decipher them. Sometimes a human resource person doesn't know what they're talking about. Sometimes they're putting what they'd like to get, but they're not getting anyone that has close to it. So like in your, in so many of my students' cases, they just are looking for, as I said, that you can speak the language. And the other thing was, in these degree programs, you have to remember, guys, you are so much further ahead during my course. I've said this again and again, these marketing programs still teach digital as an elective, if they teach it at all, and they don't teach it practically. I've literally now talked to like hundreds of marketing students in my career now. And I hear the same thing. They're like, oh yeah, we learned about, microeconomics and like media buying, TV media buying. And then there was a little course where they mentioned what SEO was for 5 minutes. It's like ridiculous. And then even if you major in digital marketing at Full Sail, they talk about this, they don't make a website, guys, until they've been in the program for 2 years. It's absolutely insane. Literally, I have another video on this. They literally, the first like 3 months of that is like psychology of play and like English composition, all these bullshit courses. And then after a year, they like introduce them to what SEO is. And you guys are, this is who the person looking to hire someone is, this is who they're running into. They're running into people that don't know what digital marketing is at all, or have like such a limited understanding. That's why if you've been watching these interviews again and again, you hear this again and again. Trent comes in, he's got no internship, he built one website, and they're impressed. That's what I'm teaching you. And you really, I think your attitude is so great. That's why I've been talking for almost more than an hour, and I don't mind it because you got a real positive energy. That's what I want you guys to have when you're in the course. Is like, it's like the analogy I used in my old video course. Like you're showing up to spring training. I used the movie Major League as an example. You're showing up to spring training. You don't have the credentials, like there's that scene with Wesley Snipes in Major League where he shows up to spring training with the Cleveland baseball team. And he's like, he's not on the list. He wasn't invited to spring training, but what does he do? They're doing sprints. He shows up and outruns everybody. Right. He's faster than everyone. That's what you're doing, man. That's what you're doing. You showed up. You don't have any experience. You just, you have the experience you generated. You got a psychology and exercise science degree, but you impress them. That's how these guys get hired. So you have to look at it like that too, in terms of the process when you're interviewing, which is to say you are auditioning. You know?
No, I try and like, because I work with like some of the like younger servers that I work with at the assisted living home. I try and tell them like all the time, like as much as I can. It's like, don't go to school. Like you know, I know I sound crazy, but like don't go to school, don't go to college, because it's like there's so much available to you. Not to like go on to all this. I know I know you'd enjoy it, but um I almost, it's like a regret I have. You know, I'm happy I'm at the point I am. But it's like, no, dude, I wish somebody had been there to tell me. And I wasn't on YouTube looking up, you know, these things at that point. So I wasn't ready for it. But it's like, dude, you don't need any of this. Like my degree was totally useless. And I, you know, that's something that I accept and that I sort of live with now. But it's like, I could have started this when I was 18. Like I remember, dude, with one of the first interviews you had was with somebody who was like 20. And I was like, what the hell? Like, how did they do that? That was one of the points at which I was like, I'm going to take the freaking course. Cause like this dude's like in high school and he has like a real job, you know?
And you're
And
only,
that
I
was
just want to
so
point
close.
out, you're 23, right?
Yeah, 23. Yeah.
Okay. So remember, guys, I didn't start till I was 33. So you got a 10-year head start on me. So, you know, 20, 23 to me, it's like potato. I mean, you know, like, but I think that's a really good insight. By the way, guys, just a little plug here. I'm giving away my book, Skip College for Success, for free very soon. I decided that it needs to get out there to more young people. So I'm gonna make a separate video about that. And I don't even think I'm going to ask people for their email addresses. I think it's just going to be a straight download because I'd love to have like millions of people read the book.
Well,
And
dude, we're at a point where it's like, at least I feel that we're at a point where it's like the digital space has it so outweighs what school offers outside of like a few select fields. Um, it's like there, I mean, there really is no point. Like even dude, what I was doing with like the other people who were sitting in those rooms with me, the classrooms in the psychology, it's like, what are you doing? Like, you know, I was going there to try to be a therapist and I ended up wasting my time. It's like, I used to think now I look back on it, you know, and it's like, there's no point for you to be in that classroom. Like you can learn whatever you need to online. It's like you said, they've been indoctrinated to believe a certain way. And I was the same way. That's why I went to school. I went to school because it was like, that's what you're supposed to do. And I knew my parents would be impressed, you know, and that was it. That was all the thought I put into it. But it's like, seriously sit there and think about the decision. And it's also too, if like your parents are paying for it, then it's like, you sort of feel obligated. But it's like, especially if you're paying for it, it's like, screw that, dude, because it's just absurd. And it's like, yeah, no, that's one of those things I'm like heavy on now. I try and tell you know, whether it's marketing or coding or like whatever, you know, it's like, get ahead with that. Cause I wish I had, you know?
yeah. And as I point out in the book, man, I mean, you know, I don't know how much of this I'm going to post. I'll probably put the whole thing up. You know, you guys, people make jokes because I say I'm going to cut this and I leave it in. But I wanted to stay focused on the digital marketing aspect of it. But you know, the thing is, like, one of the things I point out in the book is the fact that most college graduates, if they can get a job, are working in either sales, customer service, or office jobs. That's where the jobs are. These are all things you could do without a degree. That's why the underemployment rate, which is the like people working at a job that have a degree that didn't require a degree, is like 60% in a lot of fields, 40 to 60%. And even jobs where it said a degree required, that's just nonsense. You know, it's like you're working in an office filling out a spreadsheet, but you said you're in a psychology class, you at least had a goal. There's so many people majoring in psychology. They come out, they learn such theory.
Yeah. They're
You
not
know, and
learning
the funny thing is I've met so many people in my life who are psychology majors who do not have their life together. And it's like,
right.
what was the point? It's not like a practical, you know, this isn't like you took like life, you know, training seminar where you have to actually like examine your life and like make changes. You're learning like, oh yes, this is this theory, this is that theory. Do you plan on being a psychologist? No.
Right.
But I'm going to spend $40,000 a year to take these classes that are teaching essentially the same thing I could have learned online much, you know, quicker. So anyway, man, it's that is a bit of a tangent. I gotta decide if I'm gonna keep that in. I want to keep.
That's my mistake as well.
No, it's all good. It's great talking with you. Let's just wrap it up. I really appreciate you sharing this with everyone. I think it's very inspiring, and I'm excited to see, you know, what you do next. But I really think your attitude of gratitude and your enthusiasm is contagious, and it's very inspiring for everybody. Is there anything you want to say to anybody watching the interview right now?
Yeah, well, first of all, man, thank you. Because, you know, you were, again, I've never really said this, but you were sort of a mentor to me, like during this whole period, you know, and I really look forward to this moment. I remember thinking like, I'm going to be one of those dudes on the interviews, you know, and so thank you for having me. But also, yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for me is, and I sort of touched on it before, but like going through school and, you know, high school and then into college and just going through the motions, it's like, I started to get to a point where I didn't really believe I could do things on my own. And this was just the path I was going to take. But like taking an actual risk for the first time in my life and having it pay off, like, you know, it's one of the most empowering things that you can feel. So I just, yeah, I urge whoever, it's like, if you're on the fence about this or about anything, it's like, you know, you really can do it. You know, it's the first time I can say that, like, I chose to do something and I actually set out and accomplished it. And like, I can't explain to you or anyone else, you know, how that makes me feel. It's not about marketing or anything else. It's just like, you know, when you can really set a goal and get after it and accomplish it, it's like, there's nothing like that. And graduating for me was not that, you know, and I'm so grateful to you and to everyone in the course too. And to all the former interviews like that I listened to, because that gave me a lot of motivation. So thank you, man. And yeah, I mean, you can do it. That's it.
Very well said, Trent. That's really great. You really said it perfectly. Yeah, man, thanks for sharing and being so open. And it was great chatting with you. And you know, we'll reconnect and do another one of these in like a year or so.
That'd be awesome, man. Yeah. You be safe, Seth. Be well, you know, and thank you again.
You're welcome.